Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to a What's New in Aerospace program here at the National Air and Space Museum today. Our topic is the upcoming total solar eclipse on August 21st. And I'm fortunate enough to have Dr. Lou Mayo, a NASA astronomer based out of the Goddard Space Flight Center, who's an expert on NASA educational programming. Marty Kelsey, a member of our own staff who is a former teacher and one of our great video producers. And Genevieve de Messier, who is our lead astronomer here at the museum. And they are all going to give you some important information about the eclipse, where to see it, and so forth. Lou, let's start with you. NASA's got a big effort coming up here. Why don't you tell us a little bit, just in general, about eclipses? What's it all about?
Oh, sure thing, Steve. Well, on August 21st of this year, for the first time since 1918, a total solar eclipse will cross our country from Oregon down to South Carolina. And if you're standing anywhere in that roughly 70-mile wide path that goes from Oregon to South Carolina, you will see a total solar eclipse. But everyone in North America, and also parts of South America, Africa, and Europe, will see a partial eclipse where the sun's disk is only partially covered by the sun. Here you see the umbral shadow of the Earth tracing out a path across the United States. That's where you'll see the path of totality. That's where you see the total solar eclipse. But outside that path, you'll see a partial eclipse because you'll be standing in the sun's, or rather in the moon's, penumbral shadow. Moves across the United States and then out into the Atlantic.
Thank you, Lou. Marty, you're conducting some programming from inside the path of totality. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this. So what I do here at the museum is I host a TV show for middle school students called STEM in 30. These are fast-paced, 30-minute episodes, and we cover topics ranging from the International Space Station to the Wright brothers. Our first show this year is going to be from the path of totality, and I'll talk about that here in a second. But first, I want to give you a little preview of what we have coming this year on STEM in 30. Check it out.
Here's what's happening this season on STEM in 30. We hit the road and take you to the center of the action of the Great American Eclipse.
Discovering Discovery. Get a very special look at a very special spacecraft.
The Apollo 11 command module is going out on a nationwide tour. Learn all about the Apollo Moon program. What roles do music and the arts play in space travel? Learn about the psychology of long-term space flight.
Next stop, Mars. Meet Orion, the space capsule that could be flying to the red planet.
Speaking of flying, we learn about the airplane's family tree.
Then we take a highway to the danger zone to check out what happens on an aircraft carrier. Also on STEM in 30, we'll show you how to train to become an astronaut.
We'll also learn about the science of staying safe
and the engineering behind the world record skydive.
And you get to learn how scientists and you can explore the universe. That's all this season on STEM in 30.
So on August 21st, I will be traveling back to my hometown, Liberty, Missouri, where I taught for 16 years middle school science and broadcasting. And we're actually going to go back to my school and do our show live from the path of totality with teachers that I knew and students that would have eventually been my students. And we are really excited about that. One of our astronomy educators will have a telescope trained on the sun safely. We'll be webcasting that down in the lower corner the whole time, and then you'll be able to see what's going on with totality, and we'll talk a little bit about everything eclipse that day.
Wow, that sounds like a great program. Genevieve, we're not in the totality zone here in DC, although we will see a deep partial eclipse, and I know you've got some interesting programming planned for those who are coming by to visit here at the National Air and Space Museum and the greater DC area.
So here at the museum, we have the Phoebe Waterman Haas Public Observatory just outside the building. Let me call your attention to the map here. So if you're here in the building, you know how to find it. Just outside the food court is the dome of our observatory, which is open 5 days a week, Wednesday through Sunday from 12 to 3 p.m., as well as for some special events like evening programs and, of course, the eclipse. So you can go out right now. I think it's getting a little cloudy, but when it's clear, we're out there using telescopes, and you can use it to look safely at the sun. So these are some of the telescopes that you can use at the observatory. There's one for projecting the light of the sun in white light, and one for looking at the sun in red light. Those are some of the examples of views that you can have at the observatory. Now, on the day of the eclipse, we'll certainly have the observatory open, and that's one of your resources for observing the eclipse. So you can come here for expert talks and for safe solar views of the sun through a telescope. You can also go to our Stephen F. Udvar-Hazy Center, where we'll have more telescopes set up, and we'll be setting up telescopes at the National Zoo and the National Archives. So please join us at one of those 4 sites for special programming on the day of the eclipse, or you can observe it for yourself at home. Now, this is the view of the eclipse that we'll have here in DC. Here it will not be a total eclipse. It will be a great partial eclipse. So this animation is showing how the moon is blocking the sun on August 21st from here in Washington, D.C. At maximum eclipse, about 82% of the sun will be blocked from view. And then it will start decreasing again for the rest of the eclipse. So just to get you ready, if you're here in D.C., it'll start at 1:17 p.m. here in D.C., and that's when you'll start seeing a slight bite being taken out of our view of the sun by the moon blocking it from view. And then maximum eclipse will be at 2:42 p.m. So if you're in this area, that's when you will see most of the sun blocked from view. And then the whole thing will end just after 4 p.m. So you have almost 3 hours to enjoy the eclipse, the partial eclipse here in DC.
Oh, fantastic. Lou, one of the best resources available to the folks here in the audience, both live and online, is the NASA website, eclipse2017.nasa.gov. It has a lot of information. Tell us about it.
Well, sure thing. So we've been working on this for 3 years, anticipating this eclipse. And we built a website and other communication vehicles to bring the eclipse to the public as only NASA can through the eyes of NASA. So one of the things that you'll see on this website, besides interesting information about the eclipse and eclipse history and how eclipses happen, is images from our NASA spacecraft that will be observing the eclipse. We have spacecraft that will be observing the umbral shadow of the moon crossing the country, not only from Earth orbit, but also from around the moon. The Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter spacecraft will be taking images of the umbral shadow on the Earth from one side of the moon and orbiting around to the other side and taking more images. We have spacecraft out at what we call the L1 point, which is outside the orbit of the moon, that'll watch the moon move in front of the sun, move in front of the Earth. We have balloons through the Space Grant program that'll be launched along the path of totality up to about 80,000 feet and watch the umbral shadow of the moon race across the country. And of course we have our on-the-ground NASA assets, our NASA scientists and technicians. And so we'll have lots of interviews of heliophysicists who study the sun, planetary scientists, and astrophysicists who are going to talk about eclipses or what we call transits on other worlds and other star systems. We also have engaging activities for the public as well as citizen science programs that you can do, real science with the eclipse, and a whole bunch of cool images and downloads and videos that you can grab and use. So the Eclipse website, eclipse2017.nasa.gov is there for you. You can, if you're doing an Eclipse program, you can register your program, and it'll go up on our Eclipse map, and you can find out what other groups are doing, libraries, amateur astronomers, all over the country.
Sounds wonderful, and I encourage everybody to check out that resource. It's really a good one. Now, Marty, the STEM in 30 program was really informative and sounded really cool, but that's not the only programming that you'll be doing on the day up. Tell us about some of the other things that you have up your sleeve.
Yeah, so we've got a great video production group here at the National Air and Space Museum, and we do a lot of different videos on a lot of different topics because we cover so many different things. But for the eclipse, we are creating what we call lightning lessons. And these are not just geared at the general public, but specifically, they look at teachers. And what can you use in your classroom to really help you be able to teach the eclipse? So we have one about how to, which we'll see after a while, about how to create an eclipse using a yardstick. We have one about some facts about the eclipse. And then my favorite one is about artwork with the eclipse and some kind of fun ways to view the solar eclipse. And we call these lightning lessons. We'll be releasing them soon, but here's a little sneak preview of one of our lightning lessons. I'm looking really forward to that because we're working on getting the logo for our show made out of pegboard and projecting the eclipse in a really big way. I think that'll be really cool. And that's something that all of you guys can do no matter where you are in the path of the eclipse, total or partial, and be able to do something cool with the eclipse.
Well, that's really creative, and that'll make a really interesting logo. Now, the partial phases especially involve looking at the sun. And anytime you look at the sun, you have to take precautions that you don't hurt your eyes. Genevieve, tell us a little bit about the dangers and the remedies, because we want everybody to really be able to enjoy the full pleasure of totality. After all, people come for thousands of miles to see this magnificent phenomenon. Tell us more.
So first I'd like to talk about safely viewing a total solar eclipse. And I'll show a picture of actually one that Steve himself took on Easter Island for a total solar eclipse, speaking of traveling thousands of miles for this magnificent natural phenomenon. So during a total eclipse, the moon will completely block the bright part of the sun from view. In this example picture, this is illustrating an effect called the diamond ring, where it's not quite total yet because you're still seeing a bright peak of the sun through a valley on the edge of the moon. So if you're in the zone of totality and waiting for totality to start and wondering when it's safe to look at the sun, not yet if you see this, because you still have to use eclipse glasses or other safe ways of observing the surface of the sun to see this phase. But as soon as that diamond ring winks out and the bright part of the sun is completely blocked from view, you can take off your eclipse glasses and look straight at the sun without any protection at all. The totally eclipsed sun is about as bright as the full moon, and it's okay to look at directly. In fact, that's the only way that you'll see the glorious outer atmosphere of the sun called the corona. Now, it doesn't last long. This eclipse will last up to about 2 minutes and 40 seconds, depending on where you are. So as soon as that's over, as soon as you start seeing the bright part of the sun peek out from behind the moon again, you have to immediately go back to using a safe solar viewing device to see the rest of the phases of the eclipse. So next I'll tell you how to safely view a partial eclipse. Now everyone in the country, as Lou said, will get to experience a partial eclipse. And those in the zone of totality will get to see a partial eclipse before and after totality. And it will last longer, almost 3 hours. So here's one way to observe a partial eclipse with eclipse glasses, and we're handing them out in the museum today. You can come visit us any day to come pick up free eclipse glasses. The picture on the right is showing what the sun will look at through your eclipse glasses. It is safe to look directly at the sun with your eclipse glasses. Don't put them in front of a telescope or anything else like that. They are intended for your eyes only, not to be modified in any way, and make sure they're not torn in any way or damaged. They should stay in good shape for many years if you keep them in good shape, so fold them up and put them somewhere where they won't get ripped or bent, so they're still in good shape for this eclipse and for other eclipses that you want to view in the future. You can also use them to look at the sun any day you want, not just on eclipse days. So go ahead and practice with your eclipse glasses. Now there are some other creative ways to view a partial eclipse, and Marty mentioned some of these. So here in the museum today, and any day that you visit us, you can use hole punchers to punch out an image on paper and then use it to project a pattern that is special to you, and as the eclipse progresses, it will change. So don't forget to take some pictures or something of your projection to see, to record your experience of the eclipse for later. So you can do that in the museum today and at our Family Day next Saturday, July 15th, at the Stephen F. Udvar-Hazy Center. You can also use pegboard or anything that has little holes in it to project images of the sun, as Marty was mentioning. You could use a straw hat or a pasta strainer. Just don't strain your eyes. So those are some different ways that you can observe the partial eclipse using projection techniques. Anything like even a Ritz cracker or something that has little holes in it will work for that purpose.
And retaining these things is important because we're going to have another total solar eclipse in the United States in 2024 in April 8th. And it will hit Dallas and Cleveland, and it's actually going to be significantly longer than this eclipse, which is going to be about 2 minutes and 15 or so seconds. So be sure to hang on to those things. Lou, there's a lot of science that's still involved with studying the eclipses. I mean, back in the olden days, that was the only way we could look at things close to the sun. But even today, there's a lot of real science going to be done at the eclipse. Could you tell Tell us a little bit about that.
That's right. So there are still some mysteries that remain to be solved when we think about the sun. And we have a unique opportunity with a solar eclipse because the moon is almost precisely the same apparent size in the sky as the sun. It's 400 times smaller than the sun. It's also 400 times closer. So when the moon covers the sun, it covers just the disk of the sun and not much further. This gives us a chance to view the beautiful solar corona, which is the only time that we'll get to see the corona because it's so tenuous, right down to the surface of the sun. And it turns out that this is where some magic happens. We don't fully understand it yet, but right around this region, the temperature of the corona starts to get hotter as you move away from the sun. It makes no sense intuitively, and we have some ideas about why this happens. It could be waves propagating into the corona, or it could be something we call magnetic reconnection, where magnetic field lines of the sun reconnect and express energy. So we don't fully understand this yet, but by observing the region right above the surface of the sun, called the transition region, we're going to get some better ideas of how this happens, how the sun's temperature increases through the corona. We're going to measure temperatures, we're going to measure flow velocities, things like that. So this is really an exciting opportunity for us to learn a little bit more about the sun.
Fantastic. So there really is a lot of scientific research that's being conducted with this. Marty, there's some educational things that are associated with the eclipse that aren't necessarily strictly astronomical. Could you amplify on that for us just a little, please?
So recently I had a chance to go to Houston, Texas, and work with astronaut Randy Comrade Bresnik. He's a great guy. He invited us down to talk with him, and in July, he will be launching, the end of this month, he will be launching to the International Space Station for a 6-month stay. We went down, we talked with him about what's it like to be in space. We talked about spacewalks, we talked about launch and landing and photography and all kinds of different things. And starting with about a week before his launch, we're going to release a video of him talking about how to see the International Space Station pass over your backyard. And then the week of the launch, we're going to talk about launch. The week he lands, we're going to talk about landing. And one of the things that we talked to him about was the solar eclipse, because he is going to be on the International Space Station during the solar eclipse. And it looks like he may have an opportunity to actually see the eclipse from space, which is incredibly cool. And so what we're doing is we have a series of videos called ISS Science. He talks about what's going on in space, and then we have an activity to go right along with it. And I mentioned earlier the yardstick activity. So you'll see that in this video, as well as him talking about what he's planning to do while he's in space for the eclipse. So here is ISS Science.
Hello, astronaut Randy Bresnik, and I'm fortunate enough to be aboard the International Space Station this August 21st, when we're supposed to have the solar eclipse. They tell us that we'll be actually going right over the United States as the main part of the eclipse is hitting the middle part of America. We've got special filters that have been sent up to the space station, so not only can we take pictures of the solar eclipse and the shadow on the ground, we can actually take pictures up towards the sun and send those back down to you as well. So we're looking forward to seeing that because I've not seen one from orbit, and it's going to be really, really interesting. Hope you join us.
I cannot wait to see what the images look like that Comrade Bresnik takes while he's on the International Space Station. I think it's going to be incredibly cool.
Wow, that's great. Of course, we can't all be astronauts in the space station or scientists doing the research that Lou described, but there are a lot of opportunities for everybody, regardless of background, to participate in realistic scientific research because it's a real research problem. Genevieve, can you tell us a little bit more about that? The time we have left.
Absolutely. There are several ways that you, as any person and a scientist, can get involved in science using the Eclipse. You can make observations and contribute to our scientific understanding. So one way is with an app that will be released by the Smithsonian called Eclipse Soundscapes. This will be available soon. So you can use this app to record the sound of the eclipse from your location. Whether you are in the zone of totality or not, we would love to have you record the sound of the eclipse from your location. The reason for this is twofold. One is so that scientists can collect data on what the natural world sounds like during an eclipse. For example, we're working with the National Park Service to record the sounds of the eclipse from remote sites where we can hear the sounds of nature and wildlife responding to this as sudden darkness falls in the middle of the day. You can expect birds to start making their nighttime going to bed noises and generally sounding confused, insects to start singing, and other animals to react. Also, the other purpose of this app will be to enable people who have reduced vision to be able to experience the eclipse in a deeper way by listening to the sounds of the eclipse from different locations. And the reactions of humans to the eclipse is just as important as the reactions of other animals to the eclipse. If you've ever watched a video or if you've ever been to a total eclipse, the people responding to the total eclipse are one of the best parts because people get so excited at the sounds as the moon completely blocks the sun from view. Now, another way that you can get involved in contributing to our scientific understanding is to go to the zone of totality and help an organization measure the size of the sun using the eclipse. This organization is called IOTA, and their website is at the bottom there, along with the Aerospace website for finding out more about how you can observe the eclipse and get prepared using our resources. The picture there is one of our volunteers, Jay Miller, who put a blog on our website. You can find it on that first website there, about his 5 experiences seeing total solar eclipses. And some of those were helping IOTA make measurements of the size of the moon or the size of the sun using eclipses. So that's another way that you can get involved. And Jay's stories are really great. So he's been to these 5 eclipses, and the one that he listed as his favorite one was actually the cloudiest eclipse that he experienced, which was in Germany. Because when they drove and found a hole in the clouds and observed the total eclipse through that hole in the clouds, someone was with him who had never seen a total eclipse before. And the way that she cried and was struck by the majesty of the eclipse was what made it his favorite eclipse. Now, another way that you can get involved in the science of the eclipse is with the Citizen Kate experiment. And you can find out more about this and other citizen science experiments on the NASA website that Lou mentioned. The way the Citizen Kate experiment works is that more than 60 astronomers along the line of totality will use their telescopes to observe the eclipse as it happens for them. And they will be especially observing the inner corona of the sun, the inner atmosphere of the sun. And each one will only get about 2 minutes or so of totality in their location, but by stitching together all of their observations, we'll get more than 90 minutes of data on how the inner corona of the sun changes over time. So that's one of the really exciting opportunities that we get from this.
Modern technology really allows everybody to participate. The website with NASA, our own website, and the activities here today all give information about this event, this phenomenon that you definitely want to see at least part of, and they participate. We have information about that on site and on our website, so it's fantastic. So that's what's new in aerospace when it relates to the eclipse. Lots of things going. Thank you all for participating. Thank you all here in the live audience, and for you online. It's a pleasure being able to share this information with you today. Thanks to Boeing for making What's New in Aerospace possible, and the other many friends of the museum as well that allow us to do what we do to share these exciting things with you. So thank you very much for participating. Thank you.